And another very, very important guest today, the launch weekend of the East Glos, is somebody I'm sure a lot of people will recognise, people from the squash world particularly. We're very glad to see you, Jonah Barrington. Welcome.
Delighted
Welcome
to be here.
the East Glos. This isn't actually the first time that you've graced the club with your presence, is it?
It's the first time I've been here.
Right.
I was at school in Cheltenham.
Oh, that's right.
I haven't actually been back here for about 45 years, so this is the first time I've come through some familiar places.
Right.
And when I was at school, I have to say that I was not aware of the East Glos club. They probably wouldn't have allowed me in anyway.
Did you in fact start playing squash at school when you were at Cheltenham?
I did. We had squash courts with concrete floors, which is what you would have found in sort of places like Pakistan and overseas, but I don't know why Cheltenham had concrete floors, so I actually learned to play on these concrete floors, and at that time I have to say I was much more interested in tennis.
Right.
And other sports,
okay.
But I did play.
And what led you from just squash being one of the games you played as a schoolboy to take it a little more seriously then?
Well, a bit more by chance than anything else, because I'd come to the end rather abruptly to my university career, and I was casting around for sort of things to do, and I've always loved sports. And there was a job with the governing body in London on the sort of administrative side, sort of dog's body clerk. And it gave me access to playing squash, which I enjoyed playing just as I did other sports. My brother was very good junior and far, far better than ever I was. But I was very keen to sort of do something, and so that opened doors, got me into clubs. I became fascinated by it very quickly.
Did you know?
And then obsessed.
Did
really.
you know? Did you know at that stage that you had talent? Were you obviously going to be good at the game, or did that come later?
Well, I think it's a good thing not to know too much.
Right.
I knew I was pretty good at drinking quite a lot of alcohol.
Okay. Right. Yeah.
And I thought that I could have a good go at a sport. I'd done sort of reasonably well playing different sports with the seasons. And it didn't take very long before I realised that this was a sport that suited me.
Mm-hmm.
And it suited my nature, and it probably suited my physique. The players are quite a bit bigger now. Taller.
I mean, when are we, excuse my ignorance, but when are we talking about? This was what, back in 1960s?
Back in the 60s.
Back in the 60s.
Yeah, 64, 65.
Right.
Very,
and this, of course,
very
it was
early
an amateur
days.
game.
Almost totally amateur. There were one or two professional tournaments on a very limited basis. The best players in the world were the Khans from Pakistan. They were pros.
Yeah.
And one or two Egyptian professionals.
I mean, you're a young man now, thinking about squash perhaps, not as a career at this stage presumably, or was that a possibility?
I can't remember.
Can't remember. But I mean, you.
No, I didn't think of it as a career. I mean, in terms of finance, it would never have crossed my mind.
No.
What it meant to me was that I had an opportunity to play a sport very seriously, and after a short period of time, and I made quite swift improvement, I became very obsessed with it. And I thought, I can take a lot of these people on, and I want to take a lot of these people on. And I was fascinated by a lot of other sports, so I read pretty copiously about the training for sports, and I did feel that in a lot of British sports the training was I sensed it was very average, and it wasn't it certainly wasn't anything more for most people than a serious hobby.
Yes. Was this preparation, the psychology of sport, the fitness angle, or all of that?
Well, everything. As I developed in the sport, I became fascinated by the psychological aspects, because it became obvious to me that when all things were equal in terms of playing somebody who was the same level of fitness and where you were technically similar, then the battle almost inevitably would then be won in the mind. So that, in the end, probably fascinated me more than anything else. And on the coaching side, which I've always enjoyed, I enjoyed it when I was playing. My own coach, who was Nasrullah Khan, he was one of the great Khan players, he said to me, and he didn't like it, that it was inadvisable to chat to opponents and perhaps suggest to them that they might try this or that. He said basically, don't tell anybody anything
no.
until you're finished. But I really enjoyed the coaching side.
But you, as a player, were you a hard nut? Were you a tough man on court?
I think I was hard-nosed. What I like to think is that there were guidelines within which you played. You played hard and fair. My main rival was an Australian, Jeff Hunt. Mm-hmm. We had many monumentally long matches, and the let count, replayed points count at the end of those matches was always minimal, because both players gave access to the ball.
Were courteous,
that way.
Yes.
But he was hell of a hard-nosed. Every point was paid absolutely ruthlessly in terms of the quality of what was going on. And obviously you are fighting for territory around the middle of the court, and it is a physical game. But the guidelines should be stringent for everybody, although they're not observed necessarily in the same way in this day and age in many sports. But I would